Go.
Don't you start?
Oh shoot, yeah, I do. I see him now, my Joker friend, in the corner of his kitchen, scrunched, his coat and suit still on, or in his shirt and trousers, one shoe off, and the kitchen floor's dirty, and his cheek stuck to it, and there's a bucket under the sink, and there's a bottle of bleach, and there's no one, and the telly's playing for days and days, and through the night, and in the dark, it's a lantern show, rolling over his dead back, one program after another, then going round again, and again, and he's just the name. He's just the same, dead in the corner. Or is it me?
They came back. They followed me up the stairs, old Stan's head nearly up my skirt. When they got in the room, I couldn't believe it. The man was still there, but fucking completely bra-faced. He was suffocating, I think. Spit bubbles was coming out above the bra. You could stink deodorant and see it, like lava on his cheek. I suppose you expect me to scream, but I just looked. I suppose someone should have given him the kiss of life, but the fat man just slashed him one. Blood grazed into the deodorant fast as light. He sort of whined, but was so quiet, it was a million miles away. I wanted him out. The fat man said he'd send someone up. We come down. They went somewhere. I went back to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That was like 1 minute and like 30 seconds, I would say, that we actually like read it out. Do you think that's long enough?
Fine.
Do you think that's long enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of your character, the Slag?
She's a slag.
Oh, that's true.
Well, not a lot, I do think. In this one, she's kind of a bit upset, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's not kind of like. I don't think she's like really slag at this bit.
No. She's basically she was basically with a fat man earlier down at like the bar or whatever, and then she's gone back to her room and she's seen the man there again, and it's like the third time that he's been there. That he's been in her bed, and each time before, he licked her deodorant without her noticing, and when smelt it, and she's robbed him every single time. Like she'll literally like steal his money, and like so this is just before Act 2, and then in Act 2 they have like a weird like relationship, like friendship kind of sort of stuff. But yeah, she gets really like high, and then he has like a bucket on his head because he's been slashed in the face.
Oh right.
Yeah, because the fat man's been like, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out, kind of sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I just swore. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
What do you reckon the music's going to be like? Are they different music, or is it the same music for the beginning and the ending?
I would say, well, this is my. I have a predicament when it comes to the music, right? Because,
Right.
this play is set in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So, you could have some 90s music playing,
The 80s.
and it would make sense because of where they are, right? But
Right.
at the same time, there's a lot of references to earlier in the play because the main focus is like on Act 1 is mainly like the man, I would say. Like Act 1 mainly heavily focuses on the man, and then in Act 2 we learn more about the Slag. And then like near to the end, properly near to the end of like Act 2, we get like the Slag and the man properly bouncing off each other.
But the music is only to do with the scene.
Yeah,
It's
to do
not
with the scene.
with-
Yeah, but I was
It
going to.
depends what the scene's about, but the scene's not really about anything.
No. Well, it's very dark with the man. Like, he's saying, he's talking about person in the corner. Like, he's basically talking about himself, really, isn't he?
Yeah. Maybe some, like, dark 80s music.
90s music, yeah, you could do that.
Isn't it the 80s?
It's 90s, I said.
Is it?
It's the 90s, yeah. It was performed in the 90s, so I'm guessing it was set in the 90s, yeah. So we could have that. I'll have to research. And if I've got to look like sort of deep into it to see what kind of sort of music we could put, because it's also got to suit the style as well of the play. You can't just have like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what like bands in the 90s, but you can't have, say for example, Oasis play, it just wouldn't work. So yeah, so I'll have to think about that. Images. Do you think there's any images that we could like find?
I think the images are to do with the political, social, or economic like issues.
Mm.
But so what like issues is Cartwright trying to like what's the word? Explore in the two little monologues. And then get the images off of that.
Yeah, I would say that for yours, it's very like, what's the word? Like it's very like graphic. Not very graphic, but it's got graphic descriptions in yours and mine as well. But in yours, but like to the point where the slag's seen it, she's like, oh, it's disgusting. Yeah. It's weird, but I'm somewhat like fine with it. Like I'm not grossed out.
Yeah.
You know, and then with mine, it's sort of very dingy, kind of sort of very descriptive sort of stuff. So I could, yeah, it kind of sort of works sort of well because my first bit is sort of, I would say, quite dark, and then the one afterwards is dark but light-hearted at the same time.
Yeah, but what statement is he trying to like tell the audience?
What, in this scene or throughout the play?
Yeah, in the scene.
I would say that he's trying to show across that the man knows that he needs to better himself, that he needs to get himself out of this hole, but he ends up getting himself in a worse hole because he ends up getting slashed. And then later throughout, so at the end of the play, he basically becomes the slag's. Let's use a good term. Let's use a more rounded term that I can use. Like basically his pet, her pet. Like he becomes her pet basically. Like he'll do anything. He lives and sleeps under her bed, and she still sleeps with other men. And he has to hear all that and sort of stuff. So he becomes almost like an insect, almost like not
like part of her.
Yeah, part of her, like not valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just becomes an object of hers, really.
So that's the statement you have to put at the opening.
Yeah.
Just edit an opening title, and a closing title.
Yeah.
To enhance the statement you're making. So that needs to be at like.
I wouldn't say, but I wouldn't say that's now. That would be a bit later. So I need to try and think of like what it is now. What it is.
What do you mean?
Because that's at the end of the play, right? That's like the end. Like that's the crescendo. That's what left off. That's huh?
You need to find out what the scene is saying.
Yeah. So, what do you think the scene is saying to you as an outsider who hasn't actually sort of looked at the play really that much? Your first impressions, like.
It's kind of a sad scene, isn't it? Like the way they're talking about it, and like the way he speaks about it. I don't know. It's kind of hard to think of like the political and like social effects and stuff, because I think it's more of a social effect, really.
It is. It's more a social effect because he earlier in the play he's lost his mother. Actually, no, he originally like it. It's sort of there's a perfect monologue. Well, the monologue that I originally did with you is actually sort of a perfect setup for the man's character as a whole, really, because it sort of shows the living situations that he lived in, really, which wasn't great. And when his uncle died, the only thing that his uncle, and he was quite close with his uncle, the only thing that his uncle left him was £20, and they spent that on fish and chips and a Hot Hits record CD they got, and that's the music that I was thinking of other than that, and that would have been before the 90s, because that was when he was a sort of a young kid, teenage sort of child sort of person.
Yeah.
So yeah, but obviously we didn't do that because it just didn't work with like the amount of lines or, you know, sort of stuff to work with.
Yeah.
But I think this is sort of kind of good because it sort of he finally sees what he's become, and he's sort of questioning himself. He's like, oh, at first he says, I see him now, my Joker friend, but then he realised, oh, at the end he questions himself. He's like, or is that me?
Or is it me?
Or is it me? So maybe trying to think of maybe it's a social sort of realisation